FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And the big news out of Washington, the news that we've been waiting for since Election Day, really, we have an Agriculture Secretary. We have President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run the Department of Agriculture and all of the sub-agencies thereof, former Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue. This is a familiar name for folks that have been following the search for a new secretary. He met with President-elect Trump some time ago. I believe it was November.
Back in November. I mean, he was the first one that as far as we know. Yeah.
So the search has come full circle, all the way back to former Georgia Governor Sonny Perdue. Phil, we understand that as the search has come to a close, we understand that former Governor Perdue was in the USDA building yesterday. I don't know if he actually measured the drapes figuratively or literally, but we do know that he was in the building, kind of took a tour of the grounds, and also we know that he has met with Senate Agriculture Committee Chair Pat Roberts, who will lead his confirmation hearing.
Right. He was on Capitol Hill this morning, we're talking on Thursday morning, of course. He went to meet with, had called Senator Roberts yesterday, came in, met with him, and with his cousin, Senator David Perdue, who's a member of the Agriculture Committee. They both went into Roberts' office.
And this is, as we mentioned, a name that is not horribly surprising, but it's received a fair amount of support from a number of agricultural groups that have been flooding Phil and I's inbox with statements regarding this nomination. But it's still not entirely without a little bit of controversy. We're talking about a Southern farmer when there's already plenty of Southern influence, as we've talked previously on this program on the agriculture panels. And now we're seeing a Southern farmer, Southern veterinarian, former Southern governor, lead the Department of Agriculture.
Well, I don't think anybody can question his knowledge of agriculture. Sonny Perdue grew up on a farm. He did get a degree in veterinary medicine, although he never really practiced it. Instead he went into business, built grain elevator business and fertilizer business in Georgia. One of the companies he has now has grain elevators throughout Georgia and into South Carolina. I think there was definitely some regional differences, as there almost always is with ag policy, as we know. Concerns in the Midwest, and those still linger somewhat with Senator Chuck Grassley and others. The concern that as a Southerner, he may not appreciate some of the issues and concerns in states like Iowa, Nebraska, and in other parts of the Midwest, where farms tend to be smaller. Farmers tend to rent more land often than they do in the South. So there are little different issues. Commodities, of course, can be different and are different from a state like Georgia, Texas, than in Iowa. Again, Nebraska, Minnesota, and so forth.
And in some of the higher level political positions in the Department of Agriculture, obviously still to be named, since the Ag Secretary is just officially named here within the last 24 hours. So some of those Midwestern concerns could be alleviated through things like undersecretaries, deputy secretaries, things of that nature. So there's still
right.
a chance for some Midwest influence in this administration.
It wouldn't be surprising to see a deputy secretary come from the Midwest, and as we know, the Trump people have interviewed in this process, have interviewed some people who might possibly pop up in a deputy secretary, or as you say, an undersecretary the undersecretary positions as well.
So no firm news on when we can expect a confirmation hearing for Secretary Perdue, as he could potentially be dubbed, but we will be sure to keep you up to date on that information and cover that hearing obviously when it does come. But I want to shift gears and talk about some other hearings that we did see this week, particularly the confirmation hearing before the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee for Scott Pruitt, Trump's pick to lead the Environmental Protection Agency, the former Attorney General of Oklahoma. Phil, anything in particular really stand out for you? I mean, we saw some commentary on things like renewable fuel standard, waters of the U.S. Anything in particular really stand out for you with that hearing?
Well, what I was really taken by was his very forceful, vigorous defense of the renewable fuel standard, and pledge to enforce it as Congress intended, as it is in the law. He made reference to the fact that EPA has frequently missed the targets with their renewable volume obligations, or RVOs, or their mandated usage levels. And he pledged on several occasions to use the waiver authority judiciously, was the word he kept repeating. He went about as far as the industry could possibly have asked for in terms of committing to pretty aggressive implementation of the RFS going forward.
And he wasn't as forceful in his commentary on the waters of the U.S. rule. Basically said that it's the role of the EPA to add clarity of the rule, but he didn't describe what that clarity would be under his term as administrator.
Right. Frankly, I don't think I heard anything much different than what the current administration has said in terms of arguing for the need for the waters of the U.S. rule, the WOTUS rule. He was pretty vague. He said that the landowners producers need clarity. I don't think anybody argues with that. Obviously, as we always say, the devil is in the details. It's where those lines, literally where those lines are drawn, and he'll obviously get some say in that, especially if they either withdraw the current rule, which is not going to be easy to do, or if the courts send it back to them, which is another very real possibility.
Right, and a couple more hearings to touch on before we let you go this week. We saw a confirmation hearings for Trump's picks to lead commerce, interior, energy, education, a lot of things that are going to be important to agricultural stakeholders. Phil, anything in particular really jump out at you in any of those kind of handful of hearings there?
I think the hearing with the new Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross was interesting because it brought up the theme of trade that we're going to be hearing a lot about and we're going to be watching very closely. Ross was pressed pretty hard by the Senate Commerce Committee on how he viewed trade. There's a lot of concern up here on the Hill, especially in the Senate, about Donald Trump's pledge to particularly take on China, to kill the TPP, to renegotiate NAFTA. Ross tried to reassure the committee that he and the administration will be pro-trade. This is another issue that Senate Agriculture Chairman Pat Roberts said he's going to be pushing with Sonny Perdue, the Agriculture Secretary nominee, as well. So we're going to be hearing a lot about this, a lot of concern, and there are more confirmation hearings to come where trade is going to be a major issue.
So the next time Phil and I come to you for this program, we will be officially within the Trump administration. That inauguration is fast approaching. By the time you watch this video, it may already have happened. But be sure to keep you up to date and informed on all the happenings as the Trump administration takes off here in Washington, D.C., and what that might mean for agricultural policy here in these next 4 years. But for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.